Hi, nice to see everybody again. Thanks for coming. This is Jim Nowakowski. I'm Interline Creative Group President, here to talk to you today about one of my really favorite topics, research. This is an AIA-CEU approved course. You're going to get full credit for it. We like that. We're going to spend an hour together. It's copyright. It's our intellectual property. However, at the end of the course, you'll see my name and email, and if you shoot me an email, I'll be happy to send you a slide deck in a PDF file format. Even though I encourage you to take notes at this session, ask questions, make it interactive, you may want to do something and just listen for a bit and then send me the note, and I'll send you the PDF file. This is going to discuss how architects, engineers, designers, professional people are really going to use research, should use research today to help them with their business. If you're going to develop business, there's nothing like research. And as you can tell from what's going on today in the political climate that we exist in, there's lots of things going on that cites research. You have poll after poll after poll after poll. And you already know, I'm not going to make this a political presentation, but you already know what happened in this election cycle, is that something happened with the research. Something interesting happened with the research. We're going to talk about that. So, a few learning objectives. Basically, what we want to do is teach research basics. Research isn't difficult, but it is difficult. I'm not trying to be facetious. We're going to talk a little bit about insights that it can help you with your business and prospects, but we're going to look at some techniques of research that you can do on your own customer file. It's called RFM, recency, frequency, monetary value. That's one of the tactics of research, which we'll talk about. And we're also going to talk about the evaluation of findings, because you read research all the time. Everybody's got white papers these days and research. I'd like to start with a story. One of the groups that we continually research are you, the architects. We want to know about you, what you do, what you think. So we're constantly looking at what you do. And we also get secondary research from people. So we had a client that was developing an innovative product. It was an electronic faucet. And one of the things the client decided is that water on the deck, doesn't really mix with electronics. So he built a fiber optic faucet. Excellent, just a very innovative product. So the fiber optic module was below the deck, and then you had this beautiful faucet on the deck. And our research told us that you, the architect, don't really care what's below the deck. You care about of course, the aesthetics of the faucet. So when we told the client that, the client said, I don't care. I'm proud of my electronic fiber optic module. So we did this. So this was one of the most expensive ads I've ever done. It was a 4-page insert, ran in major magazines. We honed the copy, we sweated the copy. We would meet weekly on the copy. Every word was, every I dotted, every T crossed. It was unbelievable. The photo itself, we took one photo, that we ended up using many photos, but this photography session was like $20,000. It was one of the most expensive shoots I've ever been on. We found a beautiful glass sink, green glass sink, to shoot this faucet, from the side to show the module on the bottom. Unbelievable, unbelievable. The day came, he saw the transparency, and in those days they were shooting transparencies, not digital. He jumped. I still feel the pain in my shoulder from when he whacked me on the shoulder and said, "This is great." So we ran the insert, and a month later the phone rings, and it's the national sales manager, and he says, "Jim, what the hell are you doing?" I said, "I don't understand. What do you mean?" He said, "What are you running in these magazines about the faucet?" I said, "I'm running the approved ad that we struggled with and prepared. It's a 4-page insert. It's beautiful." He said, "Pull the ad." I said, "What do you mean, pull the ad?" "Pull the ad." I said, "Why?" He says, "We're getting orders for green sinks." This is a true story. Ignored the research, ran with that, changed the ad, and started selling lots of faucets. The reason I bring that up is because this is the man, and if you're wondering who this man is, this is David Ogilvy. And he was one of the most successful advertising guys, but his secret weapon was research. And the quote that you're seeing that he said basically is, if you're trying to persuade people to do something or to buy something, that it seems to me that you should use their language and the language of every day, the language in which they think. And we try to write in the vernacular. In other words, you got to talk to people like people. And so part of what Ogilvy did, one of his famous ads you see here, is really the Rolls Royce, where the loudest noise you'll hear in the Rolls Royce is the ticking of the clock. And it's what they call a long copy ad, because half of the page is copy, and then you see the picture of the beautiful Rolls Royce. And people read that ad. Now, I've read that ad many times, and I'm never going to own a Rolls Royce, but it's beautifully crafted and written. Most people don't care about language these days, just like some of the functionality of graphics is being lost and overridden because anybody with a computer becomes a graphic designer, right? And architects understand this too. But some of the things that Ogilvy said is that people who ignore research are as dangerous as the generals who ignore the enemy signals. Never stop testing. David Ogilvy was a great tester. That he said that our role as ad people, and your role as business people, is to don't let anything distract you from the sole purpose of your business, which is really to sell stuff. You sell or else. One of the things he proved is that on average, 5 times as many people read the headline as the body copy that's in print. Guess what they read in email today? They read the subject line. Before if they read the subject line, sometimes they read who's sending it to them and delete the email. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you should take advantage of research and what it tells you about how people deal with content. These are the business basics that you see, and I show this in every CEU that I have, because the technique of research can help you not only answer these questions properly, how many customers do you have? How many do you want? What are your short-term goals? They could also help you drive those up or down depending on you, because you can't have too many customers, can't you? You can have too many customers, you can have too few customers, et cetera, et cetera. So what is research? There used to be a saying in research called, will it play in Peoria? That's probably passé now. But they used to say that about Peoria, Illinois, because if the show would play in Peoria, it would play across the country, because Peoria was kind of like the middle. It's where the average American lived and worked and played. So if it plays in Peoria, chances are it will play all over. That's not true today, is it? But I still use that because that's what you're trying to do with research, is put the odds in your favor. Without research, it's like flying an airplane without radar. You're flying blind. You're basically saying, I'm going to leave it to luck. So the more you can use research to your advantage, the more you can put luck aside and put the advantages in your favor. So research is about finding out if a particular method, behavior, product, design, etc., is something that your clients, your customers will be open to. So it involves testing, it involves talking, and there's techniques for that. And actually, research is the secret weapon of many marketers around the world. They study behavior. One of the things you're going to hear from me today is that you should always be researching. What does that mean? You should always be researching. You should be listening. You should be looking. You should be smelling. Use your senses. Constantly. You have to be aware. They teach you that sometimes, when you go into situations you're not used to be aware of your surroundings. That's what research is. It's not just being aware of your surroundings, it's probing. We're going to talk about that today. And listen to people. Because, ladies and gentlemen, they are listening to you. Even though you don't think they're listening to you, someone's listening to you. So, recently, I was in Las Vegas for a trade show, okay? And it's 3 o'clock in the morning in Las Vegas, but it's 5 o'clock in Chicago, and I'm on Chicago time. So I decided, well, I can't sleep, so I'm going to go down and get coffee, and the only thing that's open is the area cafe. We were staying at the area with the client. Beautiful hotel. So I get down there, and it's very early, there's no one there, and you can see from the picture that it's roped off. And there's this mammoth, there's this beautiful, it's unbelievable display architecturally. It's glass panels, frosted glass panels. and there's rocks behind there. There's just a huge display of rocks. And if you look at the rocks, you can see the glass panels, and there's little areas right open, and behind there are just all sizes of rocks. And there's two guys with gloves on lifting the panels very carefully and putting it back into the display. And I assumed somebody kicked the panel at night. You know, it's Las Vegas, people, you know. But so I'm curious. So I asked the guy, what's going on? Did the panel break? He goes, oh no. He says, we're washing the rocks. I said, what, washing the rocks? He goes, yeah, they get dusty. And he was serious. And I'm listening to this, and I'm going, really? He says, oh yeah. And he says, I blogged about this. If you're interested, you can see it on our website. What's the word I'm looking for? I go, well, and I see all these rocks. I go, perpetual? And he goes, that's it. It's a perpetual job, because it takes us 6 months to finish washing the rocks, and then we got to start all over. And ladies and gentlemen, there's the two guys that were doing this. I thought of the myth of Sisyphus, of rolling the rock uphill, so I blogged about it. I would have never known that had I not asked that question. If I hadn't asked, what are you doing? Questioning people is always the way to open the door to research. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why did you do that? You used to do that, my mother. Why, Jimmy, don't touch the stove. You'll burn your fingers. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? So research opens the door to think. And research is everything. I can't get into a cab. The minute I take a cab, I get in and I say, how's business? And they start talking. And we have a conversation, if they talk. Sometimes they don't talk. But most of the time they'll talk. And one of my questions is inevitably, how's Uber these days? How do you compete with Uber? And if I told you half of the people don't care about Uber, they're doing fine. Would that surprise you? Because every time you read about Uber, you think Uber's taken over the world. But these cabs are perfectly happy dealing with Uber. Some of them actually drive Uber on the side, you find out when you do research. Now, why do I care about Uber? I don't care about Uber. I care about human behavior and why people do what they do. Why? Because it affects every one of you, just like it affects me. People are making choices, and sometimes our job, doing research, is to figure out why they chose your design over your design, why they chose your firm over your firm. And you want to find these things out. Is it because my aunt works there? Is it because, I don't know, you see? You got to find these things out. Otherwise, you're flying blind. The invisible shopper, or they call it the undercover boss now. They actually made a series on this. I think they listened to me. I'm being bugged. I met one of my bankers said, why don't you want people to know who you are, that you own a business? I said, because I don't want people to treat me differently because they know I own a business. The minute a person knows you have a business, you're an architect, you're a designer, they treat you differently. If they don't know who you are, they treat you like every Tom, Dick, and Harry, which is what I want to know. I don't want special treatment. I want to know what you really think. That's why you have to have the ability to become invisible. Great actors do this. Method actors, before they become famous, Marlon Brando was one, right? Robert De Niro was another one. They go into the area. If you ever saw Marlon Brando in The Men, he actually went to a rehab center to work with veterans who were hurt in military, to understand their pain, to understand how they act. I always dress like this when I travel. And I was standing in the area waiting for breakfast with my client, just like this. And a guy comes into the door with his bottle, and I'm holding the AHR, it was the AHR show, and I'm holding the directory in my hand. And the guy goes, "You going to the show too?" I go, "Yeah, they must have just closed the doors, right? Because it's 7 o'clock in the morning." He was obviously out all night. And he looks at me, he goes, "Don't you tell my boss." We joked. People look at me and they think I'm a security guard. "Do you work here?" I go, "Yes, I do." And then I start talking into my sleeve and laugh, and they run away. You have to really get over and try to be invisible to understand what people really think. Get over the creep factor. Just get over it. It's not creepy to watch. Like when I ride the train downtown. I love to watch people on the train. Some are texting, some are reading a newspaper, still very few. Some are working on their computers, some are sleeping, some are talking. Very few people talk anymore. They just don't talk. So, for example, High Point is the largest furniture show in the country. We were down there doing research. This was 7 years ago, and we're walking and we're talking to the designers, and what social media do you use? And she said Pinterest. I never heard of Pinterest. 7 years ago, you didn't either. And now Pinterest is one of the designers' tools, because they set up boards and they ask their clients to go into the internet, pin what you like, and let's talk about it. It's a great collaborative tool, Pinterest. But 7 years ago, no one knew about it. So in research, I uncovered Pinterest, and I came back to my office and I said, look at this. And everybody was, what is that? And you added to our knowledge base, because we're always adding to our knowledge base. This is very important. Hang around. Your targets are changing constantly. People change. And you have to adapt, change, or disappear, ladies and gentlemen. If we didn't adapt, change, we would have been long gone. I'm telling you right now, because the world changes. And you have to change with it. And if you don't do it, it's going to go away. And research will help you. Research. Wall Street Journal does it this way. They still sell a lot of newspapers, but they're selling more digital than they are print. When they did print, they would have what they call a control package. So they would mail out 100, 200,000 of this control package, measure the results, see how they did against the control. Then they would change the color, or they'd change the story, or they'd change something in there, mail it out again, and see if they could beat the control. They were always measuring. Direct response people, and I come from direct response, are great testers. They're great researchers. They want to know why. I wanted to know why the advertisement failed before my client found out. I would want to know that, so I can fix it. That's what research does. It's about insight. Ladies and gentlemen, it's impossible to tell why people do what they do and predict with any consistency. Do you agree with that? You can't tell. But don't tell researchers this, because researchers believe if they have the answer, this is the way it should be. That's not true. Think about Coca-Cola. You remember the Coke story? They did all this research and said, this is what you should do to the formula. This is going to be the next thing since sliced bread. They changed the formula and their sales fell, and they went back to their original formula. It didn't have the original formula of cocaine in it, which it did originally when they started, which is why they call it Coke. Stop. It's true. But it doesn't have that. But that's what people did. They do research, so take it with a grain of salt. Dostoevsky, very famous Russian writer, said, man is not a math formula. Sometimes he just likes to break things. And if it were that easy, if you could have the crystal ball and tell what's going to happen, what else do you need, right? But it's not that easy. Look at what's going on in the election today, in the political climate. Every piece of research for the last election was wrong. You remember the 2009 crash? Most people didn't see that coming. A few did and made a fortune. This is why research is important. You have to know. I had one of my prospects turned client, now collaborative partner, called me up and said, you've risen in my esteem. I said, why is that? She said, because I talked to this is a physicist who has a business tracking legislation across the country, federal and state legislation, a great software tool. She said, you've risen in my self-esteem. I said, why is that? She said, because I talked to a lot of people, and you're the only one who predicted Donald Trump would win the election. Now, I'm not touting philosophy here or political affiliations. I'm just saying that the reason I did that is because I erased my blackboard and I looked at this. I looked at what was going on. Of course, nobody believed me, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. Research will tell you and help you understand what's going on. You see? So sometimes it's nice to break things. What can research tell you? Let me start with RFM. Every one of you in this audience has a customer file, right? You have customers, you have prospects, and more than likely, it's in your Excel files, right? Or it's in your accounting software. It should be in Excel. So recency and frequency and monetary value research looks at a file and asks a few simple questions. Who's my most recent buyer? Who's my most frequent buyer? And who's my most monetary, highest value buyer? And when you look at a customer file like that and you ask these questions, every time you sort it by those questions, the answers are always different. They're different because your most frequent one may not be the guy who spends the most money with you. The guy who spends the most money with you may not be your most frequent one. You don't know until you start doing this. But this is one of the secret weapons of researchers when they look at files. We used to call it the dead file when I was in direct marketing. We called on a client anytime we called on a client when I was an account guy in the direct response business, we would walk in, sit down, start the meeting, start talking a while, and then inevitably we would ask, can we have your dead file? And they would look at us and say, what's that? Most people didn't know what that is. The dead file is the customer who hasn't bought from you in a long time, in a while. Which you have to take the customer file and sort that, and that would be the least frequent. Because wherever there's the most frequent, there's the least frequent. Wherever there's a high monetary value, there's a low monetary. The highs and lows are in all those three questions. And the client, the prospect at the time would say, why do you want this file? We said, because we are going to bring some to life. And of course, the prospect would go, yeah, get out of here. And some would throw us out, not really. And we would talk further and explain what we were going to do, get his attention and get the file and do it. And inevitably, we produced 10% of sales of whatever he was. 10% more sales came in out of nowhere. Why? Because we hit the file. What does that mean? We talked to the people. Infrequent customers are infrequent because you don't talk to them. Not because they hate you, because you just don't have the time to talk to them. So that's a little secret trick. Talk to your customers. Talk to them. They want to hear from you. Send them a newsletter. Do something. You see? So recency, frequency, and monetary value are really why. They're answering why people buy from you. So everyone, once you do this recency, frequency, monetary, I'm going to show you a few charts like that and start asking questions. They'll all reveal something to you. Strategies, some research. And this is the type of research you're doing in an Excel spreadsheet. There's other type of research we're going to talk about, phone calls and things like that. So what are the fields you need in your database to do RFM research? Here they are. For example, you need the name of the person, the address, city, state, zip, titles if he has one, emails, the usual suspects. But you also need what they bought from you, when they bought from you, and how much they bought from you. So if you don't have these things, you can't do RFM. So if you don't have them, you should start getting them. And if you do have them, you can start doing RFM tomorrow. You really can. And it's very exciting. So you really know how to, does everyone know how to use Excel? I see a lot of hands. Yes, 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 good. The people who did not raise your hand, find someone who does. Excel is God's gift to all of us. With Excel, you can manipulate data. We work for a company that runs SAP. You know what that is, right? Huge, expensive software, enterprise system, like Oracle, right? We made lots of money taking files out of SAP and working them in Excel to give the client what he wants because SAP couldn't do it. I'm serious. I'm absolutely serious. Because SAP is a very, very robust piece of software. Unbelievable. But you have to go to school to learn it, and you have to get training. Most of the time, and this is not a dig at SAP. I love SAP. when it works. And it takes a while to get it to work. It's like Salesforce. These are great programs. They just take a while to get going. You ask any salespeople what he thinks about Salesforce. Do your research. Half of the people will say, we love it. Half of the people will say, ugh. So does that make the program good or bad? Well, it depends on who you're talking to. Is it going to meet your needs? Perhaps, and perhaps not. You see, in research, like I told you, there's no one single answer. You have to listen to all the... It's like triangulation. If you're trying to find a spot, you usually triangulate to get a better representation of where that is, right? We're going to talk about electrons in a minute. Don't get scared. So triangulation will geographically tell you where you are better than just saying, I'm over here, you know, just a straight line. So you want to triangulate. That's what research does. When you do research, you're getting inputs from different areas. We learned a long time ago, you can't believe one thing. It's like in journalism. You want at least 2 sources. I don't know if they practice that these days. But you really want to do this. This is very important. You want more than one source before you make that decision. That's why you continually have to research. So you should find people who know Excel. Here's a couple of files that are basically facility files. The most frequent are on the left. The competitor most frequent are on the right. The least frequent are right below. I don't expect you to read all this. But if you notice the top company on the competitor and also the client, let's call him the client, the top company there is Walmart. Now, why is Walmart the most frequent, not only for my client on the left, that is the left or it's your right, whatever, and the competitor? Why is Walmart the top company in both of those areas? I have a Starbucks card after this session if you answer this right. Right? Of course it is. See me after class. I'm kidding. No, see me. They're the largest retailer in the world. They have more facilities than anybody else. So if you're going after Walmart as an architect, right, or as a designer, you don't have to know your competitors may or may not is probably already doing business because Walmart hires a lot of architects and a lot of designers. And most of the time, the architect is inside Walmart dictating to architectural firms outside. And you know this because you're architects and you're designers. A lot of these big companies have inside people that dictate to you what to do. Especially like, for example, with engineering firms. We talk to a lot of people, we call it engineering firms, we say, we see you're handling this project for Walmart. No, Walmart tells me what to do, I just execute. This is true. So when you look at recency, frequency, monetary value, and you start sorting these things, you start asking questions, you start learning. This is an architect list of monetary and recency value. Monetary is over here, and then recency is over there. You see it? So I don't expect you to read all this, but when you start sorting your own files and you ask yourself, why does this guy have the most value? How many projects did he have from me? If you have all those fields, you can tell it. Because like I said before, not everybody you make money from buys a lot from you. Sometimes they don't buy a lot from you. Sometimes, they do. Those are the questions that lead you to find more of those types of people. Birds of a feather flock together. You can do the same thing with zip codes. So once you do RFM, what's your strategy? How do you contact these people? Should you do a research project? Should you send them a survey? Should you call them up and talk to them? Ask them. Like I said, one of the easiest thing to do is take your file and sort it. Most recent, least frequent, right? And call those people. Call the 10 people on the bottom. You may look at those 10 and say, oh, I know why. He's out of business, he's out of business, he's out of business. You may know the answers already. Well, what are they doing in your file? What are they doing in your file? Why are they still in your file? This is the truth. We had a customer who the president of the company died, and 10 years later, he was still getting mail. He was actually sent, he was getting mail, he was receiving mail, because they didn't take him out of the system. It's incredible what happens. But it's list management, okay? What are your expectations? Are you taking a hit or miss strategy? Here's some zip codes. Look at these zip codes. You can do the same thing with zip codes. If you take the zip codes from your customer file and you put them in there, and then you put the number of projects that you have in zip codes like this file is showing you, and then you sort those zip codes with the same recency, frequency, monetary value, you're going to find zip codes where your business is coming from. And you're going to find zip codes where your business is not coming from. Why is the business coming from those zip codes and not those zip codes? Now, you're going to see some things in here that I've classified like ages in those zip codes. Where did I get that from? It's on the internet. Go to the internet and type in zip code profiles, characteristics. And you can download files for your Excel to use that profile every zip code in the United States. Do you know how valuable that is? Or educational facilities. If you're doing architecture for educational facilities, there are lists out there that will tell you the educational facilities and their characteristics. This is called, social media is one of the great secret research weapons of today. Most of your targets, your prospects, have social media accounts. Go there, read them, look at what they're proud of, look at their websites. Jim, people don't post anything they're proud of on their websites. Of course they do. It's an open book. You go to their websites, you read, you learn, and you shape your proposal, your RFP. That's what you want to do. This is what research can do. The company, Dr. Pepper, they send out research constantly. Every day they're listening to their customers, they're talking. They have like 10 people in social media doing these things, talking to people, gathering information. Is that a waste or is that good? You know how much Dr. Pepper they sell? They sell a lot of Dr. Pepper. Well, Jim, I'm not Dr. Pepper. I'm selling architectural services. I'm selling design. Yeah? Guess what's commoditizing nowadays because of the internet? Everything. You got to get next to that. You got to find out why you're different. And the only way you can find out how you're different is through research. You got to be talking to people. Not necessarily just listening to me, but talking to people. So you got to mine the data. It's in the data. You know, there's a term going around now called big data. It was huge like 4 or 5 years ago. Now people are poo-pooing it because nobody knows what to do with all that data. There's a thing called IoT, Internet of Things. What does that mean? Well, do you know what that means? I see some heads nodding, right? Internet of Things is when you have a device talking to another device. Electronically sharing devices talking to each other. And somebody sitting at a dashboard watching the devices talk to each other and learning. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about the data. You have to manipulate the data. Data is part of research. And everything you do adds to your data. Everything you do. The way I was on the phone yesterday with a prospect for 45 minutes talking to this prospect. I was taking copious notes. Will it benefit me in getting that piece of business? I don't know. But I learned an awful lot. And wait a minute. I know this about you. All of you, design professionals, you're lifelong learners. I've been in CU classes where they're talking about windows and roofs and HVAC systems, and you're gulping this content up like there is no other content. You are all lifelong learners. Well, how great is that? And what are you doing with your learnings? What do you do with what you learn? What do you do with it? That's part of your research. Here's the rules of engagement, right? The success you achieve with your business is directly related to how much you know about your competitors and your customers. Should I repeat that? Your success depends on how much you know about your competitors and your customers. The more you know about these people, the more successful you are. I'm standing here and I'm a living example. I know more about my customers' customers. That's why they keep us around. I'm telling you right now. That's why I study you guys. Because you're the people that my customers want to reach. Now, that doesn't mean my clients believe me all the time. When I tell them, like the faucet story I told you earlier, right? The client didn't believe me. I told them they don't care about what's below the deck. You don't care. Of course you do, but you're really more interested in the aesthetics. But that's not the point. The point is that it's a lifelong learning and you add to the thing. So here's the 6 R's of research. The right information. What does that mean? You see, anytime anybody uses an adjective on something, you always got to be careful. So do me a favor and take those adjectives off for a moment. And let's just read the words together, okay? Information, place, right? Place, way, delivery, contact, right? And person. Now put the word right in front of them. Right time, right information, right place. The right, it's got to be right. What makes it right? Research. The final R, research. Because you don't know what the right information is until you do your research, right? I used to have a philosophy teacher in college, great philosophy of man course. I minored in philosophy and theology. This is why I go off the reservation sometimes, no pun intended. So he used to start his class out. He was a great Vincentian priest. He goes, "What do you do with a fact?" We're sitting in class. What's this all about? Come on, gentlemen. What do you do with a fact? He said, "Does it keep you warm at night? Can you eat it?" What do you do with a fact? So he's challenged us to think about these things. And we were laughing, but I wasn't laughing. I was really listening to this guy, and it made an impression on me. What do you do with a fact? What do you do with 2 and 2 are 4? So when I taught underachievers, I would say, "What are you guys interested in?" "Oh, cars." So I would say, "Is a car interesting in itself or not?" And they'd look at me and they'd say, "Get out of here." No, I'm kidding. Things are interesting because you make them interesting. Part of your differentiation is not only using research to your advantage, but going to your customers and prospects and having them understand your passion. Research helps your passion. You find out statistics and facts to help your passion. In itself, who cares? 70% of people go to Google first to find out the solution to their problem. In itself, it's nice to know, but I can put that fact in the context that makes you really want to understand what you should be doing with your content and on your website. But that's another course. So, who are your customers? Do some research. Take out a sheet of paper when you go home tonight and describe them. Talk about their age, their function. What are they like? Where do they like to hang out? What magazines do they read? "Jim, you're killing me. I don't know all that." Find out. Find out. What's it going to hurt to talk to them? Take the guy to lunch and research. Talk to him. Why did you hire me? Why didn't I get that job? That's how you're going to find out. That's why we have a course on cold calling, because that's sometimes in a cold call you're going to get information, research that's going to help you with your prospects. What and how do they buy now? What are your customers doing now? We did research on end users and why they hired people like you, which is another course. But I'm going to give you a hint. All right? Why do you think end users, facility managers, people who own buildings, your customers, right? Why do you think they hire you? Right. Okay, I can hear it, right? I see it now, right? Some of you are saying, "Well, because I'm great." Yeah, I get it. No, seriously, why do you think your customers hire you? Because you have the best price? Because you have the best firm? Because, what is it? Is it all of the above? Do you know why they hire you? I know why they hire you. You want to know why they hire you? Because you reflect their business back to them. You reflect their culture. They like you. You think like them. That's why they hire you. I can prove it to you. I can prove it to you. There's a way where you can target a customer and say, "I want St. Edward's Hospital." And I know that so-and-so is right now doing business with St. Edward's Hospital, but I really want that account. There's a way you can get that account through research. I'm not kidding you. There's a way you can break that relationship and get that relationship for you. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that's what research is about. It's about gaining knowledge in order to make or break, in your case, if you're trying to get that, break that relationship, and make the relationship for yourself, isn't it? That's what we're talking about. So why do people buy from you? You know, and what will you make them buy for? What are you going to do to make them buy from you? Can you make anybody buy from you? What's your business plan? Do you have these things? Research, research, research. So the best market research is what you do on your own. Telephone interviews. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to people. Reports, read incessantly. I know you already do that. But don't just read about walls and ceilings and flooring. Read about business. It's out there. Read about human behavior. Because, ladies and gentlemen, behavior is changing. People don't change. You know this, right? People are good, evil, whatever. But behaviors are changing. And unless you understand those changes in behavior, right? For example, we have a client now who's he's realizing he's losing business because he can't get the RFP out fast enough. In San Francisco, if they get a bid, the contractor wants the answer in 24 hours or you don't even get consideration. And he doesn't have the software to do it. And he finds this out the hard way, not through research. By having it happen to him. He's lost 3 jobs already, and it's finally dawned on him he better talk to somebody about it. He finds out that that's what it is, so now he's researching CRM software. You know, software that would actually collate all his pricing and all that stuff. $200,000 minimum investment. And he's thinking of doing it, which he should do it if you want that business. That's called research. Comparable businesses. What are other businesses like yours doing? How do they exist? You remember, don't get me started, as if I'm not started already. You, among all people, know what happened in 2009, right? I remember whole floors of you disappearing overnight because of that depression. Whole floors of these large, huge architectural firms disappearing. And the architects are now working in different disciplines. They're not even architects anymore sometimes. That's the cause of business. So what was their strategy? Did anyone see that coming? They should do research now to figure out what to do. What should they do? Right? Research would have saw something happening and would have helped you prevent that. Not for everybody. It was a difficult time for all of us. But that's what you want to think about. Because you don't want to be just those floor, you don't want to be part of the floor that's delivered, right? That's gone. So you have to be a sponge, but you already are, aren't you? You suck things up. You learn, lifelong learners. So the last part is just determine your needs, focus, prioritize, and get busy. Put a question on your website. Use your website. Use the tactics you have. Here's some other tips. Send out a short survey to your customers. Well, Jim, they're too busy. Really? Really? Do a blog on your website. Well, they won't read it. Really? Really? If you call attention to it and you give them valuable information and some of your insight, I guarantee you they'll read it, they'll remember it, and they'll come back to you. Make some phone calls to prospects. Call them up early in the morning. You know, you can hit anybody these days. You cannot hide from people. You can get to anybody. I'm not talking just like Michael Corleone. But you can find these people and talk to them. What's the worst thing that they can do? Is hang up on you. So what? So what? Meet them, talk to them. Say, I'd like to have coffee. I got some questions. Or I got a new idea about your building. Whatever. Tap manufacturer research. All the manufacturers you specify on your short list, in your master specs, every manufacturer that's worth his salt has research on their products. When's the last time you called them up and say, can you send me some research about your products? When's the last time you did that? They're dying to talk to you. Call them up and say, what's the latest thing in widgets? What's the latest thing? What do you got going? Send a rep over. We're not math formulas. You know what the Heisenberg uncertainty principle is in electrons? I told you I was going to talk about electrons. Do not leave the room. I'm kidding. I know, you got to take that call. See, they're already leaving because the minute in the Heisenberg principle, they basically say an electron, the more you can calculate where it's at, its position, the faster the velocity. And the more you calculate its velocity, the more you don't know where it's at. It's the uncertainty principle. It's that, I don't know. I don't know. So there's no such thing. Well, 2 and 2 are always 4, Jim. Well, I don't know. It depends. What if gravity doesn't work? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But there is an uncertainty about this, and that's what makes it exciting, and that's why you need research, because you can't depend on one opinion. You can't depend on my opinion. I'm only one input for you. I'm trying to make you understand that you need more than one input. But what will not change is that what I just told you earlier, research will help you make better business. That's a truth. That's like the speed of light. It's a constant. And you have to experiment. You should always be researching. Always. We were in San Francisco on a vacation once, several years ago. Just homeless people everywhere. Just unbelievable, right? It was not the San Francisco my wife remembered when she worked at Marsh McLennan and went there for training about 20 years ago. It was not the same city. So we were just stunned. It was different. We didn't like it. But I told her, I said, I want to go start talking to these homeless people. She said, what, are you crazy? I said, no, I think every one of them has a story. She said, but they're dirty. I said, I understand that. I read in a magazine, one of the issues we have, did not carry our clients' products. So I was so angry, that they didn't do that. And they want our business for the client. They want the client's business. But they used none of, and they could have, they didn't run a press release. They didn't talk about it. They just didn't do it. So I wrote the editors. There were 7 editors of that issue. I wrote them all a letter. They were down in the next suburb from where our offices are. Right? I wrote them a letter. I packaged up 7 pieces of literature that we do for our client that talks about our client's product, put it in a nice cardboard envelope, put a beautiful label on it, personal and confidential, addressed to these editors. Then I took off my tie. I took off my shirt. I put on a black T-shirt. I took off my coat. Put my baseball hat in, found a baseball cap, put it on backwards, got in my car and drove out, and I was a messenger delivering 7 packages. I got to the offices of the editor. She let me in. She saw I was carrying things, so she judged me not to be a terrorist. I walked in and I said, I'm here to deliver these things. And she goes, who are they for? And she grabbed them and she said, oh, Ed, the president of the company, who I know personally. But I'm a messenger now. I'm not Jim Nowakowski, the ad man. And she took it from, oh yeah, he's here. But these people, like 5 of the 7 worked off-site. They weren't even in the damn office. She said, I'll get it to them. I said, that's good. Do you know what's in here? Is it important? I go, I have no idea what's in there. I'm just the messenger. Even though I wrote it. I lied, right? We had a little conversation. I said, just make sure they get it. Okay, that's great, thanks. And I left. 2 days later, the president called me and said, I got your package. I said, and I shared the story with him. I actually blogged about this. It's amazing what you do when you do research. Visit your clients not as the architect or the designer, but as just a person. It's amazing what you will learn. I went to a showroom. I always go to showrooms. I stop at showrooms. There was one on the north side of Chicago. I stopped in there. 20 minutes. I'm standing, walking around. No one comes up to me. No one. And this is a huge showroom. Not one person came up to me. Not one. I left. It's amazing what you learn. And I didn't look like this. Because when you go undercover, you don't look like this. So never stop doing what you're doing. Thank you so much. This is where we come to the questions. And I know you have lots of questions. I saw you writing. you may want to email Deem. I'm going to give you my information in a moment. But if you have a few, I'll take a couple of questions if you have any. Come on. Yes. The question, if you couldn't hear it, is basically, is phone research better than written research or surveys? It really depends. There's no, like I said earlier, there's no one answer to that. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. What's your objective for the research? You may want, sometimes we do both. You know, we recommend to clients, you should do a survey, but we should also, before we do that survey, let us call 25 people to figure out if the survey's right. That's a great technique. Before you send out the survey, make a few calls, because the questions may be worded wrong. You may be trying to find out something different. So there's no one way to do research. What I was trying to get across to you today, like for everyone here, is that from the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to sleep at night, you should be doing research. You should be thinking. And I know you're doing that already. And I know, personal things get in the way. You know, the kid broke his collarbone, whatever. But you should be doing research. Even when personal things happen, you should be doing research. My wife had a severe car accident. You couldn't tell by looking at her today. But she had, she broke her jaw in 3 places, life-threatening, right? So, threw me in a total panic. I was frozen for 3 days. Poor kid. Anyway, I started doing, after my because, I didn't know what to do. So you get frozen, and that's a bad thing. Now, not only will I know what to do, if you need your jaw fixed, I got the guy. So I did research, and I found this guy. I had to do research. You don't want to just have anybody work on your wife's jaw. And I know all doctors are great. Any physicians in the audience? I'm kidding. But I found that, we interviewed 3 people, and the one we picked was the guy who looked like Opie. If you remember Opie, he was just a young man. He's our great friend now. He's a great friend now. We see him at least once every year, just for the checkup. We have a good conversation. He's a fantastic guy. As he was wheeling my wife into the operating room for the second operation of 2, there were 2, I'm talking to him about how I can help him with his PR. So he would do a better job for my wife. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I was doing it because I'm doing research. We rejected the other 2 for various reasons. Okay? And we chose him because of not only his manner, but his skill set. He actually taught this stuff. That's all he cared about. Did I answer your question? I don't know if I did or not. Any other questions? Why don't you do this? Here's my contact information. There's my email. Interlinegroup.com/evaluate is basically where you can evaluate this session. I'll send you a whole set of our survival guides if you fill that out for me. But if you have a specific question that you wrote down and we can't get to it today, just email it to me and just say you were in my session, and I'll be happy to answer it for you. Follow me on Twitter. I've always got things going on Twitter, trying to help your business and think about things. And thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope you walked away with some ideas on research. And all the while, I've been watching you. So I've learned a lot from you. Thank you very much. Have a great day and good luck in your business.